Hello, fellow seekers, and welcome back to my channel. This is Amanda Artemis the Forester. I am a rune reader, diviner, and polytheist mystic, and that is exactly what we are going to be talking about today, is the subject of divination and how that relates to, specifically, to fate and Wyrd and karma. Karma is a little bit, as we understand it in the Western world, tends to be a little bit simplified. It tends to be like you put out bad energy comes back to you. You put out good energy comes back to you. And while that is true, it's a hell of a lot more than that. Now, I have not extensively studied the Hindu concept of karma, so I am not going to use the word karma as much as possible, although I may use it interchangeably because that is the one that, as Westerners, we're familiar with. I'm going to try to use fate or Wyrd as my word, and as my term is what I should say. And by the way, Wyrd is spelled W-Y-R-D, and it is a Norse concept. And if I slip up and say word by mistake, I will be editing this in post to correct that with letters on the screen. So I asked you to forgive me because that is a bad habit that I had, because I am mostly book educated. And but you might recognize it from Shakespeare's The Wyrd Sisters, that lives on in Macbeth and other Shakespeare plays, etc. Oops, excuse me. Let me adjust this. There, that's better. Now where was I? Okay, so, the best way to think about your Wyrd is you're weird. In general, it is a universal force. We'll get into personal Wyrd in a moment. Wyrd is constantly shifting. It's like a vast web of threads. Think of a loom. A giant tapestry of threads being woven together. Okay? Right? Now, everything that you do and you come into contact with changes those things. Now, certain events may be fated, as in beyond your control. Certain things may be set in motion beyond your control because they were set in motion by other people or other beings, by the gods themselves, by spirits or whatever, but in general other people, because, you know, not everything does have a spiritual reason. A lot does, but not everything. There is the here and now. There is the physical realm, and there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to always be living, you know, up here in the 5D, up in the ethereal realm, right? And not everything is up there. Personally, that's where I prefer to be. I know a lot of people would, but that is kind of, as spiritual people, our challenge is to exist in the physical world. But, for example, our circumstances are usually at least partially dictated by the family that we're born into. So we'll start there. Ancestral debt is a thing. And that is something that especially Americans don't like to think about. Probably because this is a little bit, we did come over here. Oh, not us personally, but our ancestors. Colonialism is not a good thing, and we did come over here and take this land from the Native Americans. And while the history of the world is a history of conflict, and every land has been taken from another people, and it is quite bloody, that is not something that should be dismissed. So ancestral debt's a thing. And you can't erase the fact that you are in a different position because of your family. I moved through the world differently than someone with darker skin. And I'm not going to get all social justice warrior on you, because I actually do disagree with a lot of with social justice warriors on a lot of stuff. I think they take it a little too far. But you cannot deny the fact that I moved through the world differently than someone with darker skin. You just can't. They have to be a little more cautious around cops than I do. And the funny thing is, I come from an extremely poor family, but I've gone to events at Notre Dame and at IU, and, you know, educational events or protest events or whatever, and people would talk about poor rednecks badly in front of me, and they had no idea who they were talking to, and it was very hurtful. But, you know, I clean up nice, and I'm very articulate, and I'm educated, and I sound smart. So they had no idea that I come from a family of trashy rednecks. And they had no idea where I'm from. So this is something, you're weird, and your challenges are going to be affected by your family. Now you might say, well, that's not mystical. That's not mystical at all. That's just practical. Well, yes and no. I'm pretty sure I said on one of my other videos, the mystical flows from the mundane. This is something that we have, I believe it was Descartes. It was either Descartes or Kant. It was one of the Western philosophers that is to blame for the dualism in Western philosophy of splitting the mind and the body completely, and the whole dualism of spirituality and physicality. And that's not the way life works. It's just not. Everything is together. And so it's a cause and effect. So ancestral debt is something that you do have to deal with. And you might, depending on your ancestors. As far as I'm aware, none of my ancestors owned slaves. Most of my ancestors came through Ellis Island after the Civil War, for example. I have a lot of German immigrants as ancestors. So I would like to do genealogy and learn more about my genealogy at some point. So as far as I'm aware, none of my ancestors owned slaves. So I don't have that in my history. But ancestral debt is a thing, and for someone who actually worships ancestors, and ancestor veneration will probably be the subject of another video, and ancestor veneration is a part of every traditional religion, you have to confront the fact that your ancestors were human. And they're great allies because, in a way, because they have even more of a vested interest in keeping you alive and safe and prosperous than the gods do. Because you're their flesh and blood. But you, spiritually, there can be some toxicity you inherit from them, and you might have lessons from your ancestors that you need to learn, and there are rituals that you can do to elevate a particularly toxic ancestor. So there are rituals that you can do to elevate that. But you are also, I just want to put this out there, you are not required to work with any ancestor or anyone who's passed on that was particularly toxic to you in life. You are not required to work with them. It is a two-way street, and just as they were abusive in life, they can be abusive in death. So, just for anyone who might be struggling with that, I'm putting that out there right away. So, ancestral debt, Wyrd, that can be a part of Wyrd, but every choice that you make will also reweave the pattern of Wyrd. And this is scientific as well, because every choice that you make will reweave your brain neurons. It will make new connections in your brain, right? So, sorry, I'm getting a text and I film on my phone. Alright, so it will reweave your brain neurons, right? So, I completely lost my train of thought. Dang, I don't want to do another take. This is already my second take. I'm wondering if I'm not supposed to do this one today. Alright. So, not only is there ancestral debt, everything that you do will weave a different version of yourself. Just like you form a habit. If you get up in the morning and go for a run, that is weaving a more active Amanda into the future. A more conscientious Amanda versus the one who sleeps in. I'm not good at that. I'm going to admit that. What I have been good at is eating well lately. So every time that I eat well, instead of eating junk food, I am weaving a more health conscious Amanda into the web of fate. And every time that I am kind to someone, every time that I give money to the homeless, I am that is not just karma that I'm putting back out that I'm going to give. I'm not just doing it for myself, I'm doing it for them. I'm weaving that in because of, well, the rune Gibo. Gifting is very important in Norse cosmology. It's extremely important to feed your community, to give back whatever small, just as I said in one of my first videos, that whatever we give to the gods, whatever we receive, we should give back to the gods. You should also give back to your community, whatever small bit you can. And I don't have much, but I give what I can to those less fortunate, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to suffer. And every time you make those choices, whether even small ones, and that's why it's also important to realize when you yell at the cashier because your card isn't working, you're not just making her day harder. You're actually weaving a more uncaring you into the future. You're making it easier for you to do that again. And that's not something that you're going to want to do. Okay, I don't want this video to get too long. I'm already at 12 minutes. So, let's talk about other people's Wyrd and other people's Hamaja, which roughly translated means luck and is, in Norse belief, part of the soul matrix. So luck is not an outside force, it's actually a part of you, and something that you can actually nurture and grow. When you join yourself to another person, I'm thinking about marriage and partnership, or just serious relationship, but it could also apply to a job or an organization, or moving in with a roommate, anyone that is going to be a part of your kith and kin, someone that is going to be in your social circle. You are joining your Wyrd with theirs. You are combining your fate with theirs. Obviously, marriage would be one of the more hardcore ones, because ideally it would last forever, and that is what it's supposed to be. Our culture tends to not honor their oaths and treat them as sacred and inviolate as they're supposed to be. Whole nother rant there, so I will not get off into that. But in any case, the whole thing that that's why you really want to be careful who you associate with, because their fate can bring yours down, or they can elevate it. As I said before, I was specifically talking before about who you're having sex with. Hopefully that's something that blesses you, because you're exchanging energy. But this really has to do with association in general. Hopefully you're thinking about how their fate and their luck and their ancestral debt even interacts with yours. And that is something that I realize most people don't think about. Most people only think about the feelings. And feelings are important, but feelings can lead you astray. And a lot of times feelings are impermanent. Our culture tends to go on what will make you happy. Well, what will make you happy in the moment might be eating a whole chocolate fountain cake. What will make you happy in the moment might be, sleeping with 5 guys down the block. Or, I don't know, drinking a pot of whiskey. Happiness is impermanent. You should strive for meaning. Usually a deeper sense of contentment comes from that. Happiness is that really high elation, if that makes sense. That really, and a lot of times, when I've achieved something really amazing, I've gotten depressed afterwards. And it doesn't seem strange. It seems strange at first, but it's like, wow, what do I strive for now? And at first I'm like, what's wrong with me? I should be happy that I've done this. But it's like, what do I do now? I just spent all this time striving for this, and then I just got it. So, turns out that's not unusual. I've done some reading, and that's like a scientific thing. But that is because, as humans, our nature is to strive. Our nature is to struggle, and that is not something a lot of people want to hear. We want to live in bliss, but bliss is boring. We are supposed to strive for something meaningful, and we're supposed to build, and that is our nature, is to build something meaningful. Okay. So, onward to how divination works into that. When you divine, whether it's with cards or runes or whatever, what you are seeing is a glimpse of the future that could be if things continued as they are now. It's because, as I said before, the pattern is always shifting and changing. And you can glimpse a few of the threads of Wyrd, and you can I just said Wyrd, through this of the threads of Wyrd, and you might be able to go back. You can see into the future. You can see all these little bits that are interacting. You might be able to reach in and pluck out a bit and see what would happen if you removed something. Not like literally pluck it out, because we're talking about the DNA of the universe. But I mean, like, metaphorically, like, if someone were to remove a toxic person from their life, how would their life look? That could be their question, for example. So, fate is not set in stone the way we think of it. That's actually, completely opposite. We make our own fates. Now, in the Norse sagas, there are some things that are beyond their control, and in general, I believe, I could be wrong, I'll admit that, but I believe that what they believed was that the time of your death was pretty much fated and beyond your control, but everything in between, you could control. And so, how you got there was your own journey. How you got there was your own journey, and that is your own deal to figure out. So that is basically my job as a diviner, is to help you work your Wyrd. And a diviner's job is to actually glimpse the threads of Wyrd and help somebody to sort it out. And a quote-unquote normal person who doesn't divine can work their Wyrd best by just being honest. Don't take an oath that they don't intend to keep, because as flippantly as our culture today treats them, remember that oaths are sacred. All oaths are sacred. Do not make a promise that you don't think you can keep. Live honestly and truly, and just try to be a good person. Live your religion, whatever that may be. Worship your gods or God. and just continue to treat each other kindly and justly, but to stand up for yourself and others as well. So, one little blurb I'd like to say. I was thinking of showing you guys what a rune reading looks like, about what I do at some point. I was thinking about doing a general rune reading, like I've seen tarot readings for, like, say, Leo or whatever, and I was discussing this and with the runes, and because remember they are living spirits, and so I kind of intuit their responses, and I got a very strong no reaction. They do not want to do general readings. They want to do specific. So, as I was negotiating, I asked, well, what if I recorded a reading for myself and put that out there? And that was acceptable. So at some point, I will probably do that. I am getting ready to move soon, so I probably won't do that until after I move. It may be as much as a month. So for those who are interested in seeing what I do, that will be coming up at some point. I do also do cards. You might have seen me messing around with my moonology cards earlier, because as I've gotten closer to Mani, the Norse moon god, and as I've been working with plant spirits, I've sort of combined the herb crafters, tarot, and the moonology cards. So I really love this deck. This just feels like an old friend. Time to take a breath out. The disseminating moon. Yeah, I am not surprised. I was shuffling this earlier for fun. I've been working way too hard. Yeah, I've been combining lunar and plant energy as I've been working through the Norse shamanism practices. The lunar and the plant energy is what I've been working with most strongly. Anyway, please like the video, share, subscribe, comment. I hope this has been helpful. I don't know how long it'll be before my next video. As I said, I'm getting ready to move. I'm hoping that'll be next week, but things look like they're going to be picking up speed in my personal life. But the next time I will be reading runes in real life. Yeah, real life, like internet isn't real. The next times I will be reading runes in person at Mystic Beads in Earthware in Niles, Michigan, will be September 1st, if you are interested in that. So, stop on by if you'd like to see me. This is Amanda Artemis of Forrester, signing off. Skull.